Howdy folks, welcome to Storytime with Johnny Waken. Today I'll be reading an essay from a lady named Annie Dillard from a book she wrote called Teaching a Stone to Talk. So sit back and relax and lend me your ear and I'll tell you about weasels. Page 11, Living Like Weasels. A weasel is wild. Who knows what he thinks? He sleeps in his underground den, his tail draped over his nose. Sometimes he lives in his den for 2 days without leaving. Outside he stalks rabbits, and mice, and muskrats, and birds, killing more bodies than he can eat warm, and often dragging the carcasses home. Obedient to instinct, he bites his prey at the neck, either splitting the jugular vein at the throat or crunching the brain at the base of the skull, and he does not let go. One naturalist refused to kill a weasel who was socketed into his hand deeply as a rattlesnake. The man could in no way pry the tiny weasel off, and he had to walk half a mile to water, the weasel dangling from his palm, and soak him off like a stubborn label. And once, says Ernest Thomas Seton, once a man shot an eagle out of the sky. He examined the eagle and found the dry skull of a weasel fixed by the jaws to his throat. The supposition is that the eagle had pounced on the weasel, and the weasel swiveled and bit as instinct taught him, tooth to neck, and nearly won. I would like to have seen that eagle from the air a few weeks or months before he was shot. Was the whole weasel still attached to his feathered throat, a fur pendant? Or did the eagle eat what he could reach, gutting the living weasel with his talons before his breast, bending his beak, cleaning the beautiful airborne bones? I have been reading about weasels because I saw one last week. I startled a weasel who startled me, and we exchanged a long glance. 20 minutes from my house through the woods by the quarry and across the highway is Holland's Pond, a remarkable piece of shallowness where I like to go at sunset and sit on a tree trunk. Holland's Pond is also called Murray's Pond. It covers 2 acres of bottomland near Tinker's Creek with 6 inches of water and 6,000 lily pads. In winter, brown and white steers stand in the middle of it, merely dampening their hooves. From the distant shore they look like miracle itself, complete with miracle's nonchalance. Now in summer the steers are gone. The water lilies have blossomed and spread to green horizontal plain that is terra firma to plodding blackbirds, and tremulous ceiling to black leeches, crawfish, and carp. This is, mind you, suburbia. It is a 5-minute walk in 3 directions to rows of houses, though none is visible here. There is a 55-mile-per-hour highway at one end of the pond, and a nesting pair of wood ducks at the other. Under every bush is a muskrat hole or a beer can. The far end is an alternating series of fields and woods threaded everywhere with motorcycle tracks in which bare clay wood turtle lay eggs. So, I had crossed the highway, stepped over 2 low barbed wire fences, and traced a motorcycle path in all gratitude through the wild rose and poison ivy of the pond's shoreline up into high grassy fields. Then I cut down through the woods to the mossy fallen tree where I sit. This tree's excellent. It makes a dry, upholstered bench at the upper marshy end of the pond, a plush jetty raised from the thorny shore between a shallow blue body of water and a deep blue body of sky. The sun had just set, I was relaxed on a tree trunk, ensconced in the lap of lichen, watching the lily pads at my feet tremble and part dreamily over the thrusting path of a carp. A yellow bird appeared to my right and flew behind me. It caught my eye. I swiveled around, and in the next instant, inexplicably, I was looking down at a weasel who was looking up at me. Weasel. I'd never seen one wild before. He was 10 inches long, thin as a curved, muscled ribbon, brown as fruitwood, soft, furred, alert. His face was fierce, small, and pointed as a lizard's. He would have made a good arrowhead. There was just a dot of chin, maybe 2 brown hairs worth, and then the pure white fur began that spread down his underside. He had 2 black eyes I didn't see any more than you see a window. The weasel was stunned into stillness as he was emerging from beneath an enormous, shaggy, wild rose bush 4 feet away. I was stunned into stillness, twisted backward on the tree trunk, our eyes locked, and someone threw away the key. Our look was as if 2 lovers or deadly enemies met unexpectedly on an overgrown path when each other had been thinking of something else, a clearing blow to the gut. It was also a bright blow to the brain, or a sudden beating of brains, with all the charge and intimate grate of rubbed balloons. It emptied our lungs, it felled the forest, moved the fields, and drained the pond. The world dismantled and tumbled into that black hole of eyes. If you and I had looked at each other that way, our skulls would split and drop to our shoulders. But we don't. We keep our skulls, so he disappeared. That was only last week, and already I don't remember what shattered the enchantment. I think I blinked. I think I retrieved my brain from the weasel's brain and tried to memorize what I was seeing. And the weasel felt the yank of separation, the careening splash down into real life, and the urgent current of instinct. He vanished under the wild rose. I waited motionless, my mind suddenly full of data, my spirit with pleadings, but he didn't return.